Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I am super excited. Dimitri and I met each other just earlier this year. We immediately exchanged cell phone numbers, and we're the kind of guys that want to text about random ideas and be like, dude, did you see this yet? Very excited to have you here, Dimitri. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely, Will. Thanks for inviting. I'm looking forward to chatting.
So, Dimitri, the first thing I want to get out of the way here is why, if a seller just began this episode, who is Dimitri? Like, why should they stick around and listen? And I know you don't like to toot your own horn. So if you don't toot it too loud, I'll toot it really loud for you. But I'm curious, what about you makes you someone who would be interesting to listen to around monetizing your mental capital?
Cool. Yeah, I've been online forever. I got started a long time ago, and I'll give my 2 minute pitch on the last, almost 30 years. And that sounds horrible. Almost 30 years. But basically, yeah, I used to work for NORAD. I am a software developer at heart. I have a degree in computer science, and I used to develop systems for the Defense Department. And I was online in 89, 90, 91, 92. And then I graduated in 93 out of college. And so I was online prior to the World Wide Web. I remember the first browser that came out, the first website, Gopher, Telnet, Net News, all that stuff. That was all text-based and 600,000 people online. And I moved to New York. I got a job on Wall Street, was doing portfolio management development for systems, writing code for them. And I lost my internet access because I had no longer worked for DoD and been involved in an institution. So I was like, I have to do something to get back online. Lucky for me, my landlord didn't mind me putting a fiber optic line in the bedroom and adding a little rack of modems, and then proceeding to sell internet access for $10 a month, which was nothing at that point. And this is pre-AOL. So anyway, that ended up turning into a business, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing, making all kinds of crazy mistakes, thinking, that I can write my own, accounting software and bill people directly. I didn't even know what QuickBooks was at the time. Anyway, lots of mistakes, but it didn't matter. I was stuck under a waterfall with a bucket, and I was just catching the water as it's dropping because everybody was hopping online on the information superhighway. And the mistakes didn't matter. I was able to build a business in New Jersey and New York and quit my job. And I ended up selling it 2 years later to Earthlink in 96. And I was 26 years old. So I've been online for a really long time, and I've had 4 exits since then. I build software and sell it. I built a patent portfolio with a real-time traffic system and sold that to Apple. I sold stuff to American Express. I built a brand on Amazon because I wanted to try real-world products. I sold that during the big aggregator push, and now I'm running couple new projects, and I'm just loving what I do. I don't have a job. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've got experience in a lot of different things over the last number of years. So hopefully that's why
Well, what you're saying is you've been around the block once or twice. And if somebody hasn't been around the block yet, you might know a thing or two about avoiding some of those potholes is basically what we're saying here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. So tell me, you did a fantastic job of talking through your entrepreneurial origin, so to speak. And I love you started working DoD and you were coding and you were on the internet before it was the internet, and out there doing your thing. I want to dig into that very first opportunity that and in my opinion, you monetized some knowledge right there, because you knew what the internet was before a lot of people did, and you lost internet access, and you were like, well, crap, I gotta figure this out. I mean, and had you not used the internet before, you wouldn't have known to go look for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I never really thought of it that way, but you're right. Imagine somebody tomorrow says, hey, your internet gets shut off. You've made all these relationships with people, and you've learned how to use those tools to make your life easier to manage and entertaining and all that. I mean, that all existed just in a different form when I was on the internet for, 3 or 4 years, and there was only 600,000 people at the time. So absolutely, you lose it, and you realize that was something that you just have to figure out how to get access to. And lucky for me, I was in computer science. I used to run a bulletin board system as a kid. I don't know if I'm now super dating myself, but I had my little Commodore computer and a little modem connected to it, and people would dial into the BBS. And so I had a little bit of experience before even college on how to set up a sort of dial into my network.
Okay, wait, hold on. Tell me, what was that? You had a bulletin board? No, we need to go back there. What is a bulletin board system?
So I started a long time ago on computers because I was just geeky, and I think it was 6th grade or something. So anyway, again, completely dating myself. I got a Commodore 64, and I used to run without getting into any trouble, I used to run a software exchange, let's call it. And
A
I put I put
software exchange. This smells like
a
Napster. Okay,
no idea
so
what we're talking about. But yeah, so I ran a system where people could use their modems on their computers and dial my phone number into my computer and communicate with each other and exchange software and things like that. And yeah, so that's
sixth
all I'll say
grade?
about
Is
that.
that what you said?
Yeah,
Sixth
yeah,
grade?
sixth grade, yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
that's I love, without getting it into trouble, it was a software exchange. That's amazing. So, okay. Well, and this is honestly before a lot of the even laws came around a lot of this stuff because nobody knew
yeah.
you could even do any of it. I mean, so many things. So, okay, so you knew how to do some of that connecting work because you had, man, this is amazing. You had a felt need back in sixth grade for entertainment. Was that, I mean, what got you into like
It was
this deciding to
you
do
know,
that?
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, let me see. Well, I got the computer, I was excited about it, and I played with it and messed around. Then I felt like I sort of didn't know where else it's going to go. And you watch war games, you're like, oh, this guy dialed into some systems with a modem, and so I got to get a modem. So I put a modem on my computer, and I'm like, okay, what can I dial into, and where can I hack into? And I started whatever doing stuff with that,
It started
and
dialing into different places, just
yeah,
like they did on Wargames.
just doing different things. And then I started to meet people, and I realized like, hey, there's an opportunity to build up a little group here, an environment, and a little. So without exaggerating, it got to be like pretty. It was almost, actually, it was almost like running a business,
Yeah.
because I had people that were like, they weren't getting paid, but they were working. They were like working with me to collect stuff, software, and then I would mail it overseas, and then I would import it, and I'd be the first one to have it, and we put our screens on it. And anyway, I ran this little group, and
Yeah.
we ended up getting decent sized and whatever. I got a lot of experience managing the
Yeah, you
process of
did. Yeah, you
people,
did.
and yeah, it was cool. It was a lot of fun. It just became like this crazy sort of like,
How big did the group get?
I mean, we were at one point, we were almost the second largest. We were cracking software, if you know what that
Okay.
is. We
Okay.
were
The
like, yeah,
second largest in the world
we were second largest in the US,
in the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah. So we were distributed quite a bit, but we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. It was before, like you said, before the laws. This
Yeah.
is like days of like CompuServe and
Yeah. Yeah.
proxy blowing 2600 hertz into like a telephone to reset the dial tone so you can make a free call kind of stuff.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
those. Yeah. So that's my background. Um,
So I love that and super appreciate that you're willing to get vulnerable and talk about that because I think that's just a nugget that people will really appreciate understanding. Like, you watch some of those old movies and you watch some of those old pieces. Like, this is an episode Brandon Checketts has got to listen to because Brandon also has some experience around the world of old computers and hacking systems, and just it's just interesting to hear the entrepreneurial gene, this idea of like, I gotta figure out how to break things or figure out how things work, or, oh wow, a modem, I need a modem. What do you need a modem for? Like, and then the idea of like security, people are like, I didn't even know I needed security. Like, what are you're telling me some 12-year-old can get in? Like,
right.
it doesn't even, they don't even fathom, but you're so curious around the world and what's going on there that knowledge just becomes something that's there. Did you make any money on any of the knowledge that was going on
No,
in
no. I ended up, for me, it was more like, I guess the word was, I mean, it felt really, what's the word? It felt powerful.
validating, powerful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it felt really like I had some
Control.
influence,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
fun, and people were very excited to talk to me about stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm a 12-year-old
Oh,
kid.
you're the guy that started this thing. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the
Yeah.
guy who, wow, I've got some of your stuff on my computer, and that's, yeah. Like, I love that little screen with the two planets and the electrical bolts going through. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that at night one night, let's staying up late, like, like stuff like that. Like, it was just very
Yeah.
cool. So no,
Yeah.
I got that, and it sent me to the computer science field. I mean, I ended up, because of that, going in for comp sci, and yeah, and it kind of steered me, but it was fun. But it set me up for the ISP. I knew how to set up
Hey,
modems.
and you passed all of the background checks for Department of Defense. You have
I did.
clean,
Isn't that
you were
insane? I
totally
did.
clean. Like,
I totally did. And the funny thing is, and I'll tell you a really quick story. I was working at Peterson Air Force Base, and I got hired to break into their system to see if I can get the password file. And I went in, and I was born in Kiev, by the way. I'm Ukrainian. That's my background. And so
okay.
I
Okay.
went into the Peterson Air Force Base, and there was a security guy with me. And I brought my tools there's no floppies. It was like a tape drive. And this was like Sun workstations and things, right? Like big computers. And I get escorted in, they sign me in, they sign in the paperwork, whatever. I go in, I get on the computers, I pop in the disks, I do my thing, and I 45 minutes, I get it. I get access to
You
the
had the
password,
password file.
and I got it. I'm in. Did my job, right? I got hired for this. Wrote it all up. I'm walking out the door, security guy. I take my tools back, the tape, I pop it on the desk, whatever. I'm good to go. I leave. Get in my car. I'm driving back. This is Colorado Springs, right? This is like near Cheyenne Mountain. So literally it's like war games. And so I drive into like my Red Lion hotel. I'm walking down the home. The phone is ringing in my room. And I'm like, heck? So I pick up the phone and it's my supervisor. And she's like, Dimitri, are you, you're back at the hotel? I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you have a like tape with you? I'm like, yeah, I have the I have the tape that has the software. So can you grab that? Just come back to Peterson, please. I'm like, okay. So I get in the car, I drive back to Peterson Air Force Base. Now this time I pull into Peterson and there's two MPs waiting for me and military police, right? And they're like, oh, come with me. I'm like, what the hell did I do, right? Like, I don't know what I did. And they escort me into the building again and now past the same security guy who now is looking at me like I did something horrible. And he takes me to the back room and I open the door and there's my supervisor and she's like sitting like stiff as a board. And across from her is like a 3-star general. And on his, and by the way, the ride from the hotel to like Peterson's like 15 minutes. And on his desk is the life story of Dimitri. He's got everything about Dimitri that he possibly could have on his desk, printed out, like ready to go, including my Russian birth certificate, right? So he looks at me and I'm looking at her and she's like, can I have the tape, please? I'm like, sure, here. And she goes, you can't take magnetic media out of a secure facility once it's brought in because they don't know what else you put on it. So that becomes a classified piece of material and it has to stay at the facility. And I'm like, oh,
I didn't know that.
yeah, nobody told me that. And the security guy that was with me was supposed to watch out for me as a student, because I was a student, to ensure that I don't do something stupid like this, right? Anyway, I got a black X. If you get 3, you can't work for the government. But yeah, the expression on his face with my Russian birth certificate, and it was, anyway, 20 minutes later, they're like, okay, he's not a spy. But that was,
oh my gosh,
that was an experience for sure.
So Dimitri, someday there's going to be a movie. that literally sounds like a scene from a movie. Could you come back to Peterson, please? And then like you walk in, I can see the camera, panning over to the 3-star general and him just looking at you like, and then and then the pan down to the Russian birth certificate, and then the look on your face when you realize why he's looking at you that way, and you're like,
it was scary. Yeah, it was scary for sure. But
wow.
That was
okay, well, you passed all of that. You're in. Okay, so all of this knowledge has brought you to computer science, and now you did the job at the DoD. And were you still doing? No, you weren't doing the job at the DoD because that's how you lost your internet, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm an only child. My parents, I'm from New Jersey, New York, and they're just like, why are you still in Boston? You graduated. You should come down to New Jersey, and you should get a job on Wall Street or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was playing in a band, and I didn't want to leave Boston, but whatever. Okay, let me go take an interview with somebody. And so Christmas Eve, I get 3 interviews in New York. That should have told me how insane they are on Wall Street anyway. Who's interviewing at 6 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve? But okay. I go in for 3 interviews and I get a job offer on the spot. And they gave me a job offer and it was like 50% more money. It was a lot more money.
Like, I need to move money.
Well, and when I went home, my mom's like, so how'd it go? I'm like, she gave me a job offer. She's like, oh, how much? And then I told her, she's like, oh, good. When are you moving? Meanwhile, New York is so much more expensive than Boston. So it's all really the same, but go figure that out.
Yeah.
And then I picked up and a month later, I was back home working for a company on Wall Street and then realizing, oh, damn it, I didn't think this through. I need to get back online.
I need internet. I need internet again. So, yeah. Okay. So, and I love that. One of the things that we've found is kind of a pattern in these episodes as we've been looking at it is, generally speaking, the monetization of knowledge starts with a stubbed toe, as Chad Rubin said. He's like, it's a stubbed toe. And he was quoting, I wrote down his name, George Peterson, I think. And he, a problem is just an opportunity for adventures, is the way that he described it. So your stubbed toe in this scenario was, oh man, I'm no longer connected.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I have to find a solution. And lucky for me, I had the background to do it. I didn't expect it to become a business. I really didn't. One mess after another. My roommate had moved down with me because he's like, oh, you got more money, I'm moving with you. And so we started it together. He was like, okay, well, let's go and do this. And yeah, it was quite the
internet service.
It was quite the realization. Yeah, it was quite the realization that I had to do something. And then when it started to grow, it was really wild because we added like 50 customers in the first 3 months. And I was like, okay, it's sort of like it's nothing. It's 50 customers, but it sort of subsidizes the cost a little bit of the fiber optics.
Yeah.
And then it went to like 100 customers after 6. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it went to 200 customers. And then it went to like, it was exponential. And I didn't realize what was going on because we were, it was slow
Well, for
growth.
you, it was slow. I mean, that's actually super interesting because, 50 to 100 to 200, like it is an exponential curve. But when you think about the number of people, that's not that exciting
Right.
until you probably start getting into the next higher tiers.
Yeah, exactly. And so we started to grow, and I realized, okay, now we have 32 phone lines in the bedroom, and the landlord's not going to give us any more. And we started looking for space, and I fell into a lucky space. We were in like Jersey City, and I walked into a real estate agent. The guy's like, he heard me say what I'm looking for. I was like, I need a space that I can put a bunch of phone lines in, and his jaw dropped. And he looked at me and went, I have the perfect space for you. And he took me to this like building, and it was in the basement, and it was disgusting. It was disgusting. It was like so nasty, but it used to be an old beeper company. And if you don't know what beepers are, I mean, you probably know what beepers
Oh
are.
yeah, I know what a beeper is.
Yeah, it was a beeper company, and it was pre-wired with 200 phone lines. And
Holy crap.
I was like, take, yes, give it
Yes,
to me.
please put me in
You know?
here.
Yeah, ugly, no problem. We're good to go. And we ended up like, yeah, we ended up on that, and that was the beginning. That was the beginning of it. And then we opened a place in the city in New York, and we just kind
Yeah,
of went making lots of mistakes, man, along the way.
I bet. I bet.
Mistakes.
So, I mean, and those mistakes are actually that opportunity for adventure and growth. And like, those are the stub toes that give you additional knowledge. And if we were to go pick this apart, this spider web, I bet there's all sorts of mistakes that you made in there that helped you get to the places where you were in these other entrepreneurial journeys that kind of helped you guide, okay, this is how I'm going to go there, or this is the idea I'm going to build here, or look at those different pieces. I have a feeling we could go dig way deep into that.
Yeah, you could totally do that. But yes, absolutely. One of the things that you got to tell you, like, I only learn from making mistakes. I mean, I make mistakes all the time. I still make them today. The key is not to make the same mistake twice and think about the mistake, right? And figure out, like, what did I do wrong and what should I have done better? And also, really important is to recognize that a mistake comes in different forms, but it's the same mistake. So don't get caught off guard a second time because you didn't recognize the fact that it really is exactly the same mistake. It's just presenting itself a little bit differently.
Interesting.
And that's how I've been able to grow and quite honestly, take on businesses that I know nothing about. And I just get involved in because it's just a business. And I feel like I've dealt with those issues before in the other things I've done, and feel confident that I can be successful at that new venture that I may not have any experience with in the past. I run a trade show, as you know, and I never ran a trade show before, but we've been able to double it in size, since I got involved just 2 years ago, consistently growing it just by being conscious of
focus on those mistakes and understand, okay, what's the subconscious part of this mistake? How is it the same as all the others, and how can we eliminate it to really grow? I love that. So after you monetize the knowledge of connecting, because I love that you gained this knowledge back as a 6th grader running, a syndicate. And that's the knowledge you monetized in creating this ISP, or what was before an ISP. Then after that, what was the next journey? You mentioned it in the origin as you described it, but what was the next thing that you did?
Yeah,
you built?
sold the ISP to Earthlink, and then I realized, well, I'm a young guy, and we are on this verge of 96 now, and on the internet, still very early. And what can I do? And I'm like, well, we're developers, so I can create a web development company. And the web development company back then is not what it is today. Web development back then was a glorified Yellow Page advertisement. There's no database connections. There's not, like, it's just big static pages and got to look beautiful. And my competition was companies like Saatchi and Saatchi, which are ad agencies, right? And they've got like these crazy graphic people, and like that was my competition. But what I realized was, like, I know technology is going to get better. Yeah, HTML doesn't support certain things at that time, but that's not the point. I know PHP, I know something's coming, whatever that is, Perl, right, came first, whatever. That's going to allow me to actually create some functionality with these web pages and make it a front end to an interface. And I'm just going to wait it out. And it won't take that long. And it didn't, maybe 6 months, a year. And I was able then, we went to the first Internet World show at the Javits with Meckler Media in 97. We got a booth. It cost like, I don't know, $7 grand or $8 grand. It was reasonable, it was real money. And we had to build a booth and all that. And I ended up grabbing like Merck and Ortho and Scientific American, the Associated Press and Stock Exchange, and all of the, Alec Baldwin, Judy Collins, like
Oh my
all these people
God.
would come to our booth. We were like one of two developers, and they're all pitching like beautiful pages. I'm like, check this out. You can like log in and like bring up some data. And like, they're like, how much is this? And so I was able to build a web development company called Digital Ink, INK, which grew nicely. And then I realized something else about agencies that I didn't like. And that was, it was you're constantly out there finding new business. And I missed that repetitive monthly income from the ISP.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I was like, what am I going to do here? I have to fix this. And I was like, oh, they need to host their websites. Hoster.com, which I still have. We're going to launch Hoster.com, and they're going to pay me every month for hosting. And that's repetitive monthly income. Yay, much easier.
So breaking this down, I love the knowledge. I feel like I like to dig into the nugget of where did the knowledge come from that you monetized, right? So in this situation, you had the foresight to say, you know what? Okay, this, and Chad was mentioning this earlier today. You both just happened to be recorded on the same day. So he said, look for suppositions people are making that are in error, meaning the status quo or the way the world thinks about this. And for him, that's what he founded prophecy on this idea that, you don't change your price on Amazon. It's something that you keep static. That status quo, he was like, I'm going to challenge that, because as a seller, that was something he was trying to do. And I think that the thing you challenged is it doesn't matter how beautiful they are. There's going to be a way that there is something more. That static web pages are the best, or static web pages are all there is. Like, this is the idea that you challenged, and you began to look for an alternate. And I'm guessing that actually probably came going back to your syndicate 6th grade experience with the software. Like, you knew the basics of an interface, you knew the basics of how a database connects to an interface, and you were like, this is just another interface. They just haven't figured out how to make it so that the interface can actually connect to a database and do more than it's already doing. That was essentially the idea.
That's exactly it. That's what gave us the advantage. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what gave the advantage. And that was funny. I pitched the stock exchange. I was really quick story. We did a job for a company called, what was it called? Well, whatever, a subsidiary of the stock exchange, and we did a good job. SIAC, Security Industry Automation Corporation, and they brought us in. And I walk into this room, and the stock exchange, the very top floor, is like a really long table. It sits 70 or 80. It's all granite. It's exactly what you would expect. It's like a massive room and big hall. And I'm sitting there, and everybody's seat is labeled. And so there's Dell, there's Gateway, there's like all these massive, massive companies, and there's little tiny Digital Ink, right? We're like 40 people, right? Little company. And the woman that's running this thing rolls in this cart, and on the cart is an old CRT television with a VCR tape. Really dating myself. It's like 98.
Love it. Like love 99. It.
She pops in the tape, and she goes, okay, you're all here because we need to hire a company to develop our real-time trading system for all the member firms, like Merrill Lynch, for bond trading, right? Merrill Lynch, whoever's part of the stock exchange. And we are controlled by the SEC, and we're all going to watch the same videotape for 20 minutes. You're going to have a chance to ask questions for 20 minutes, and then you're all going to give us a proposal in 3 months, and we're going to pick the one that, right? And so she pops this videotape in, and we watch this thing, and they show what they're looking at, and she's like, okay, who's got some questions? And I'm looking at the table, and nobody is raising their hand. And what I realized was everybody that had gone to this thing, we're all salespeople. Nobody had a tech background. So I'm like, question, do we need to do this? Do we need to do this? Blah, 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 blah. I'm asking all these questions. I'm writing it down. And they're all just like scribbling away, like all the notes that I'm saying, because I just need to know, like, I know what we need to do. I just need to hear the pieces that I need to put together. Yeah, I'm a dev, right? I come back to the office, and I'm like, okay, guys, whatever we're doing, we're going to pitch this. And I knew that Hoster was not a big enough data center. At that time, there was a company called Exodus Communications, and they were like the data center. They were the first public company. Yeah. And they were run by like an ex-IBM or something. Anyway, we put our facilities in there, and I called them, and I'm like, hey, like, I've got to deal with this potentially to pitch the stock exchange. We need hosting and we need development. We'll do development. You guys can absolutely handle the hosting. You need to help me with the hosting side of this proposal. They're like, no problem. Here, we did this one for Ford. And they gave me this like 50-page document they did for Ford. I took it, I reworked it, I put a bunch of stuff in, whatever, and I gave a quote out to the stock exchange. And I've learned a couple of things here. Oh, and by the way, there was an empty seat at the table. It was like Dell and Gateway and all these people, and there was like an empty seat, and nobody was sitting at it. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I sent them the proposal. And this is the hardest thing. It took me a very long time to overcome this about myself. I immediately want to pick up the phone and call them and be like, hey, how's it going? Like, did you get my proposal? Like, what do you think, right? Like, it's human nature. You want to know. But I learned that up until that point, I already learned you cannot seem over eager to get business, even if it's the New York Stock Exchange. And you have to play by their timeline. And so for 3 weeks, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, we're doing other things, but like, I can't help this. This will make the business, right?
You
And I
can't
can't
you can't help but think about where
how
could
do
that
I,
this could be like
this
everything.
yeah, this could be like we do a good job here, and suddenly we're getting called from all the financial companies, right, who have endless, bottomless like pockets. Anyway, so I'm waiting. She calls me and she goes, "Listen, Dimitri, like I need you to." So here's the thing. She's like, "Forget about the hosting. You didn't get that. IBM got that." I'm like, "IBM?" I'm like, "They weren't even at the table." She's like, "Yeah, they didn't really come, but they hopefully that keeps them quiet," is what she said. And I was like, "Well, what are you saying?" She's like, "We know that you can do development stuff. We know you did it for our subsidiary, and we need to come in 2 weeks. I need you to present to Graco, like Graco. This is like the old, like the CEO from Stock Exchange." So I'm like, "Okay, you got it." And her name was Anne, right? And I'm like, "Okay, Anne, you got it." And I put the phone in. I ran out to like the middle of the room and I was like, "Okay, guys, stop what you're doing. Everybody just stop what they're doing. And I need the developers to start working on the interfaces. I need the communication portion, I need the front end guys. I need a working demo. I need you to make this thing happen so I can go in there, right?" And I go into the stock exchange. Sorry, this became a long story. I go into the
No,
stock.
this is great. This is great. I'm like on the edge of my seat. I want to know what's
I,
going on. So go for it. Go
I,
for it.
yeah. I go into the stock exchange. Anne brings me up to like the top of the floor of the thing, and there's this guy, the CEO, sitting there, and he's half paying attention to me. He's eating the sandwich, right? He's so involved in the sandwich. And my guys did an incredible job. Like there's data being passed. There's like screens are going off between the member firms. Like it really was amazing. Like what we did this, and this wasn't like canned. This was real working stuff going on in 2 weeks that we put together. And oh, by the way, I pitched that business for $7 million. And when she called me on that phone call, said, "You need to raise your price. It's not
It's too
enough."
low.
And I'm like, "Too low?" I'm like, that was what we calculated. So I went back in there for like 9 million. I just kept it under 10. I didn't know what to do. Like I already calculated it all. And I went in, and when I got into this presentation and we started showing it, and Anne is the one who's like working it. She's trying to sell me to her boss, and he's busy eating a sandwich. And I already knew, like in my gut, this
We
isn't
don't
going.
have this.
This
Yeah.
isn't going. Anyway, again, I went back 2 weeks later. I knew to wait, and I get a call from her. She's like, "Listen, I'm sorry." She's like, "The CEO of IBM went golfing with, Graco, and he said, 'How could you not give us this deal? We list on the stock exchange instead of NASDAQ. You need to give us this deal.'" And they ended up giving it to IBM for like $18 million.
Oh my gosh.
And I learned a very valuable lesson.
What was a valuable that's an $18 million lesson. What
Mhm.
tell me, what is the knowledge that we're about to, disperse on the world?
The valuable lesson was, by the way, I felt very good. I beat out Dell and Gateway and all these
For
people.
reals, right? Like 80 people at the
Real.
table. And well, dude, the way you were asking all those questions, like talk about a flub up on the part of, but how did they know what they were going to do in terms of the video? And like I can totally see why. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah,
right place,
it
right
is.
situation.
What I learned was it's all about networking and who you know, because that's the reason IBM got the deal. Not because they were cheaper, because they weren't cheaper. Not
No,
because they did the presentation, not because they even did any of the stuff that we went through.
it was all about who you
It's
know.
all about who you know. And I realized, and I didn't feel at that moment, I didn't feel bad anymore. I felt like I did as much as I possibly could. And that's how I feel in business. If I do as much as I possibly can do and take all the opportunities and go for it, and I don't get it, it's okay. Like I feel like I didn't, it's yeah, my fault, but it's not my fault. And that's how I felt about this. And it was a valuable lesson for me because it allowed me to understand that I need to expand my network. I need to really work on my business in a different way. And maybe it's a little bit more than just hustling. And maybe it's more about, navigating.
Creating some relationships that you
Yeah.
you build upon, and you see. Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because so that nugget of information there, it is about who you know. That reminds me of that book, Who Not How, right? Like it's really important to solve problems that way. And that's fascinating to hear, like the New York Stock Exchange, when you really dig down to it, they paid double for the website, for the interface, because somebody went and played golf.
Yeah.
So like that's a $9 million golf, like, but if you think about it, really, the relationship that they had, and the relationship enough to go golf and to go talk through it and to be someone that you can trust, and look at that. You and I have talked about that, right? You're working on data right now inside Jungle Ace, and we've talked about how the relationship is very valuable. And so even though you've got a partner now, we're going to look at that again in the future as we're ready for that. It just, that ability to trust and dig in and look that way, so valuable.
Yeah,
So valuable.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so what major roadblocks did you see across this journey that you would say were like, oof, man, that was rough? And one of them, you just mentioned one of them. It's, who do you know? Your
Yeah.
network wasn't strong enough. Any other roadblocks that you could think of?
I mean, I consistently hit the same roadblock no matter what I'm doing. And that roadblock is always, how do you make people aware of your offer? I don't find it too hard to stand out from the competition and make a better product. That part I feel super confident about, whether it's
Mm,
SaaS or, because you have time to prep before you come out to market. So you can identify all the
mm,
opportunities and all the things that you can do to make yours better.
mm,
My biggest problem is, how do you get people aware of what you're doing? And that's tough. It's hard, especially now. It's getting harder and harder because there's so much
mhm.
noise in the
So much
marketplace.
noise. Yeah,
Yeah, lots and
yeah.
lots. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, for anybody in any business, is getting that, word of mouth out, especially when you're in a virtual business. If you're in a retail location, you've got a physical presence and you've got some foot traffic, even though, that may not be as good as it used to be, but that you can always plan for. You can put yourself next to an anchor store or something like that, right? This is a little bit different. This is more than just, let me run a campaign on a Facebook
Yeah.
an ad or something like that. This is a little bit more, and it's getting more complicated. People are tougher to convince.
Mm-hmm.
So
When you said that, it pops into my mind. We just hired a consultant over at Cellular Labs who's kind of digging through this, and I had not come through. So Eugene Schwartz and breakthrough advertising, and his kind of funnel that he describes, unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, most aware, right? That's his, like, the describing the funnel.
yeah,
And it stuck with me so hard when you describe, like, how do I help people understand the problem I solve? Man, it is so crazy how often I'll get into something and I'm ahead of the curve. So I founded data automation in 2017. And in 2017, I called it an automation consultancy. And we were Zapier experts. We were just going to automate stuff for other businesses. And we were running around and shouting from the rooftops and telling everybody about this data that we could transfer from system to system. And it was so hard they were like, what are you even talking about? AP what? API? Like, it just was so early in the game for what was there. People didn't understand, like, that what was even going on. And now with AI, people are just starting to recognize, oh, automation. Like, it's so crazy because it's going to take, the same thing's going to happen 5 years from now. People, well, maybe not 5 years from now because it's moving so fast, but it's crazy how long it takes for that cycle and the bell curve of people that are in the middle of it. Like, I was literally, before there were Zapier certified experts, I was doing that. And then they formed the program, and I was the first Zapier certified expert to be invited to an in-person conference in New Orleans. I flew out to New Orleans and I met Wade Foster, and I met the whole team, and they were like, so you're like in the flesh, you're like one of those guys who is an expert in our system. Like, people, it is amazing how fast the world goes. And I agree. My problem as well, I'm too early many times to the game. And sometimes it's about putting it on pause for a second and watching the market go and then jumping on again. Just like you waited and you said, hold on, I am not going crazy on this whole I'm going to make static websites thing. They are going to make a Perl or a PHP or some way to have an interface here. And when that comes, I'm going to be ready and I'm going to gobble up the market that's
yeah,
there. Right.
yeah, exactly. And again, it's hard to do. It's hard to be patient. I have similar stories. I launched themusicstore.com in '99, trying to
Yeah.
sell music instruments. Yeah. And I like sourced 12,000 dropship SKUs and full page ads and like Modern Drummer magazine and all that. I play guitar, so that's where it came from. And I thought, we're going to kill it. We're going to kill it. We're the only music store online, and nobody wants to buy instruments in '99 online. They're too busy trying to figure out how to get online. And
Yes.
2003, like Musician's Friend blows up, and Guitar Center, and like, yeah, too early to market. And it's hard. It's hard to like
So
hold yourself
painful.
back, right? Because like
So painful.
I recently did that with blockchain because I was like, I'm going to hold it. I can't find a use case for blockchain and that tech. I kept coming up with ideas and things I thought were good, and you shouldn't be inventing a solution to a problem that doesn't exist,
Yep. Yep.
right?
But
And
you should be familiar enough with, so like there's nothing wrong with getting in and really, so there's another hack I would throw out to everybody who's listening. When you find new technology, when you find new forefronts, when you find like AI right now, it's solving a lot of problems, but the real power is you getting inside it and understanding its inner workings so that you can watch the market for the right moment to strike, right? It's not about like you said with blockchain. Like there's nothing wrong with you understanding the inner workings of it, because then you're ready to actually spot that misconception in the market, and I'm going to go back to it like 10 times in that, you'll see in the episode, we'll reference it a few more times, but the static web page thing, right? Like how many of these market leaders, quote unquote, were just completely ignoring the ability to do that. And it was because they were fat and happy in their own world, and taking all the money that was going in there, and they didn't realize the emerging technology that was coming because they didn't need to. They weren't focused on what was there. So dabble in what's new, figure out where to go into that, push out, see where it goes.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's very good advice.
Okay. So any other ideas or hacks that you use to overcome some of these challenges? The problem aware, solution aware, product aware, what have you done to get around having a solution that nobody seems to care about or nobody seems to know about?
Yeah, I mean, depending upon what the solution is or the product is, will determine what you need to do to try and overcome this issue. And with SaaS, the approach now for me has been partnerships and working with people that already have my audience and working up relationships with them and doing some cross promotions and going to the trade shows and promoting, getting in front of the audience is the key, and being able to identify the audience and where they're hanging around is really the goal. And then getting your 5 seconds up in front of them and hopefully solving the problem that they actually have. That's been my go-to. That's been the way to do it. Because and follow it up with, with traditional, I'm calling it traditional advertising now, with like Facebook and Google and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
The traditional, new traditional
Yes.
advertising, the now traditional advertising of Facebook. That's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. But that's been the most successful method. I mean, word of mouth is super, super important. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have to have a really good product, and it has to be
Mm-hmm.
something people understand and can talk to others about. And it saves
Mm-hmm.
them time and ultimately money, because it saves them time and they realize they can't live without it. And then you're good to go. You just have to get in front of enough faces to start talking about it, and it'll get legs on its own. And that's,
Interesting. So have you read Clayton Christensen, Jobs to be Done framework? I can't remember. I think it's Competing Against Luck, I think is the name of the book. I'm probably totally slaughtering the name. Anyway, Clayton Christensen, if you Google Clayton Christensen, Jobs to be Done, what you just described is how he describes the idea of identifying the need someone has and then picking it apart. And I'm just going to share a quick anecdote from it because it's so powerful, and you haven't connected with it yet. So you'll really like this. You'll be Googling it after this.
cool.
He got hired as a consultant for McDonald's, and McDonald's was trying to figure out how to sell more milkshakes. And so McDonald's went in and they tried, they put up full page ads, all sorts of stuff. And the numbers just, dink, barely went up, no real ROI. And they're like, well, crap. So they hired him and he put a team of researchers on it. And they did everything. Like they went back to like clipboard and a pencil. And they literally went in and they wrote down everything they could think of. When somebody bought a milkshake, the guy was writing down, oh, he's got dark hair and, 30 years old, probably, like writing down information, just observing what was going on. And after they kind of got a feel for the type of individual, then they started stopping him in the parking lot. And they were like, excuse me, can I just ask you just a quick question? And the question they asked was this. They said, could you tell me who else did you hire? It's funny, who, not how. Who else did you hire, or who did you hire last time you had the job to be done that you're currently filling with that milkshake? And the person would look at him and be like, what do you mean? And he's like, what I mean is you have a need you're filling right now with that milkshake. Right now, there's a need, a felt need that you're filling. What did you do last time you felt that need? And the guy was like, oh, yeah, last time I hired a Snickers bar. I was hungry on my way to work, and I it's a long, boring drive to work. And so I felt like a Snickers bar. And the other guy was like, oh, you know what? I did a banana last time. And so once they began to understand the job to be done, long, boring drive at work. Oh, okay. Got it. Now I got it. They widened the straw. They made the straw bigger so that it was easier to drink. And then they asked questions about like, well, what did those other things not do for you? What's the weak point of the banana? What's the weak point of the Snickers bar? And they said, well, it doesn't fill me up all the way, or it's kind of difficult to handle and drive. And so they just focused on what those competing products did that the milkshake didn't, widen the straw and a few other things, and sales went through the roof. So like, wow. It's about the job to be done, which is exactly what you described, really solving their need. But if you shift it and you think everything I do in life is about hiring someone, i.e. a milkshake or a Snickers bar or a banana, to solve a need, I'm hungry and bored on the way to work, then all of a sudden you can figure out how to break through that value exchange.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah, absolutely. It's it. That's exactly it. Find out how you can help solve their problem, whatever that problem is. And yeah, that's great.
Okay, so now imagine you could call back to the dude, and we're not going all the way back to the 12-year-old because I love the 12-year-old and I love the like what you did there. But we're imagining that you're calling back to the guy who just quit his job and he's about to do the ISP thing. So we're calling back to that guy just before you start to, you already mentioned one thing. I didn't realize it was exponential. So maybe that's a piece of advice you'd give him. But if you could pick up your phone and you saw Dimitri at 22, I think you said it was.
Yeah, 22, 23. Uh-huh.
So you pick up your cell phone and it literally, the contact says Dimitri at 22 years old. What would you call him and tell him?
I think in general, my learned behavior that took time, which I didn't know back then, was that I have to be confident in my gut. And I have to be confident in what my gut tells me and not be afraid to move forward with that decision and not ignore it.
In my gut.
Yeah. And it took time to figure out that my gut is usually right. And I know that's not like so black and white for everybody.
Yeah.
But, people know the difference between being good or bad in the way they act, right? I think it's, at least for some entrepreneurs, you have this sort of gut feeling like this is the right thing I should be doing or not doing. And 9 out of 10 times for me, I should go with what my gut tells me. And so I would probably tell him that. And I would also tell him not to be afraid to say no. It took me a really, really long time to learn to say no to people because websites coming in and this guy wants to pay us a third of what that guy's paying us for the same work, but it's money coming in and I got bills to pay. Okay, fine, we'll do it. But that's not a good move. That's a really bad move. Like learn to say no. That's another one.
We can do entire episodes on those two things. The trusting your gut thing, 100% agree with you. They're in understanding what is that gut feeling that you should be paying attention to, and what is that gut feeling that's like, maybe that one's a little too over the top, and knowing who to check in. I have a short list of people that, like, if I have a gut feeling that seems really crazy, I'll check in with 2 or 3 people that I know and be like, here's what my gut says. And sometimes they'll tell me that's crazy, don't do it. But I'm not actually, because I have one guy, he'll tell me that's crazy, don't do it every time. But what I listen to is not that's crazy, don't do it. It's the intonation. Like if he sounds like that, like I can tell the level of crazy that I've thrown at him based on how much intonation he gives to like, oh my gosh, please stay away from that. Or yeah, don't do that. Like you can kind of feel where it is. And then based on all that information, then I decide, just how crazy was I to dig in. So 100% agree with you on the gut feeling. The saying no thing. Oh my gosh. How many times at Data Automation did I build something that I thought would be cool and fun / it was paying the bills, instead of focusing on the riches and the niches and focusing on, what I was best at. So many times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that would have helped me quite a bit. And I would have, but it's hard. It's hard to learn those lessons. You have to kind of, at least for me, I had to experience that to be able to control myself enough to say no to things and make decisions with.
Yeah. And I still think that the knowledge, the sharing the knowledge earlier, I think you can skip some of those lessons to some degree or another. You can take from someone else's experience, and you don't have to. I feel like if I have to do it through failure, I have to fail a few extra times. But if I've read a book on it and I've learned about through someone else's failures, I still have to fail a few times, but it's not quite as painful or as drawn out. So I agree. I think that sharing that's powerful. All right. So at the end here, we're going to give you 60 seconds. And what we'd like you to do is you've just stepped into an elevator with a seller. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm a seller. And you've obviously got 3 or 4 different things the seller might be interested in. So we're going to let you choose where that is. And I'm going to time you 60 seconds. Right after that, and this is not included in the 60 seconds, but right after that, you're going to share any tips, tricks, hacks, or books that have been pivotal for you in the past year and a half. What are the things that have really helped you upscale some of your knowledge in kind of figuring out where you're going? So 60 seconds, you've stepped into the elevator with a seller. Tell us a little bit more about you and why should they pay attention?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I would just say I don't pitch very frequently and I don't take on a lot of clients. I have lots going on myself. I do help some sellers if they're big enough and they need help. They absolutely, I would welcome them reaching out so we can have a conversation. I love meeting people and talking to new people. And if I can help them that way, I will. So I would love for that to happen. I do have lots of stuff going on. Jungle Ace is the latest software. So I'll use that opportunity. Jungle Ace lets you optimize your listings based on real data. I'm a data guy. My background, as you've heard, is all tech. So we're really good at it. If you use the data, you're going to get better conversion rates, which is going to lead to bigger sales. And we can let you try it for free. And if you like it, we'll even give you a coupon to use. Save 10 will get you 10% off for life. It's pretty cheap as it is now. We also have split testing. It's real-time split testing. So you could try all your ideas live on Amazon with real live data. Nobody else is doing that. And yeah, you're good to go. So save 10, get you 10% off. Jungle Ace.
He made it under the wire. Love it, Dimitri. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing. And obviously, it's got to be the right fit. You just told us how good you were at saying no. So if somebody reaches out, don't feel too bad if Dimitri says no, it's not the right fit. He probably knows someone in his network that can help you anyway. So definitely recommend reaching out. Okay, Dimitri, what tips, tricks, hacks, or books do you have to share with our listeners today?
Depending upon the size of, I think, and your listeners are not just Amazon people, right? They're
Correct.
really
E-commerce sellers in general.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that has helped me, and I've said this during our conversation, and I don't know if it's a hack or a trick or not. I found probably one of the best groups to join that are other sellers. And I joined that group and I spend time, and I probably should say the group name, but MDS is the name of the group,
That's
Amazon
fine.
Sellers. And what happened is I got to meet a lot of people that are very similar backgrounds and stories. And even if this is an Amazon centric group, it doesn't really matter. There's a bunch of people in this group that one guy owns a gold mine and he's doing some stuff on the side. And I could sit and talk to him for 45 minutes or an hour, and he's going to tell me all about the trials and problems and things that he had to go through to make this work. And I'm learning from them. And that's my point. Identify people that are smarter than you, put yourself in a group of people that are smarter than you with different things and talk to them. And I have grown my business in the last 2 years that I've been part of this particular group, probably 4 or 5-fold on the Amazon space because of this group, because of the fact that I can talk to people that will save me the trouble of learning the lesson, because I trust what's coming out of their mouths, because they've been vetted, and because I know that they're successful, and I know that what they're telling me is the real stuff. They're not just making something up. So
100%.
that is the best. Yeah, that's been the best hack and tip and trick, without me getting into like install this software and do this to up this. Like that to me has been consistent.
Who, not how. We're going back to who, not how. Dimitri, I love that. I've met Athena and Titan Network. And so there's a couple of different options there. But really, I think it's less about options and more about choosing a place where you fit and then leaning into that experience. I can tell you, the way that I closed a deal with Intuit, and Intuit paid us to redo their connection between MailChimp and QuickBooks, and then they never ended up using it. Long story. But they paid us over $100,000 to do that. And the way that I got in the door was just the tech evangelist guy who happened to know, and we had a unique specialized set of skills, but it was all about who I knew, right? And the impression I left with him, and I didn't brush him off as somebody who didn't know anything, whatever. His recommendation is what got us through the door, and then we climbed the ranks till we got that signed and moved it through. It's all about that network. It's all about that connection. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Dimitri, cannot thank you enough for your time today. That wraps it up for our episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. But before we go, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to get in touch?
The best way to get in touch is I'll give you my email. It's super easy to remember if you put my name on this episode. And just, so it's Dimitri, Dimitri, at Vorona, VORONA.com. My name is Dimitri Vorona, Dimitri at Vorona.com. That's a VO.
Beautiful. Love it, guys. Appreciate your time today. And again, thank you for all the nuggets. We'll stop it there.
Perfect.